Wait, we're going to record to this computer. I'm going to minimize this. And then finally, I'm going to turn on my pen. Okay. And then almost finally. Okay. So here we go. Talking about web stuff. Last class, when we were in here, we talked about HTML, right? We talked about the browser, and we kind of got this thing basically going. We also had VS Code. If you're in Chromebooks right now, Chromebooks are going to work temporarily, but ultimately we're going to need something like the Dells, okay? So you can get by with the Chromebooks for now, but ultimately the Dell is going to be the guy that helps you out. The assignments are over there on the right side, so you can take a look at that. And in this unit one, we've got our stuff going on inside of here. You can see that there's a whole suite of assignments in here. And there's also this resources folder. And there's going to be the supplemental files. So these have a lot of pre-made HTML files. HTML and CSS resources. These are tons of great resources. When it comes to creating links, there is a thing right inside of here on creating links. And the one that I'm going to pull up today is this linking basics from Colorado State University. I think that that guy actually has some of the most relevant stuff that we're going to be doing. It's probably the most useful condensed bit of information. VS Code is a great VS Code is a great tool. Let me just dismiss this. But with VS Code, I can't really zoom in the same way that I can with Sublime. So I find myself using Sublime over here. But pretty much everything that we do in VS Code could be done in Sublime. Or Atom or any of these other things. Now, I'm going to have you guys stop and think about what an HTML file is for a second. There's a sort of mentality that I take with me when I go into any of the HTML. When I'm making HTML files, I tend to think of them as being browser plugins. So have you heard of like plugins for, when I say a plugin, do you know what I mean like that? Like an extension, like something that's going to enhance the feature, right? Like when you get a plugin for, I don't know, some sort of mod, you're modding your browser. Okay, an HTML file is modding your browser. And it's modding it in this one particular tab that you're operating. And within that tab that you're operating in, you're modding the browser so that it displays this text, right? It displays it a certain way. But you're modding the browser so that when you click on links inside of there, it takes you to other pages. It tells the browser to do other things. You're commanding, that's prototyping, they're allowed. That's not nearly as loud as some of the other stuff that they do down there. So that is prototyping. So the language that we're going to use to mod the browser is going to be HTML. And these HTML files generally begin with this doc-type HTML. There are tricks that we can use inside of VS Code that make this a little bit easier. So once you save a file as an HTML file, if you type HTML and bring up this HTML5, it gives you this doc-type 5, this whole stub over here. Really, we don't necessarily even need this meta stuff, but having the title in there is always useful because the title, again, think of what this is doing. This is modding the browser to display. So let's go over in here. If I open this in the browser, I've modded the browser to display the title in the browser, right? I'm modding Chrome to put the word document up there. So today, what I want to talk about are links and doing some other things. So one of the tips and tricks that I really like, and I did this a little bit with Emmett last time, is making multiple things. So for example, here, if I type P, right, and just hit enter, it gives me a paragraph tag. But this Emmett abbreviation thing, if I say P times 4, you see the little suggestion of P times 4, I can get 4 paragraphs just in there, just like this. And if we do the other trick that I did, boom, 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 4 cursors, I've got 4 cursors. I could say lorem to make that lorem ipsum text, lorem. And all of a sudden, just like that, this page has 4 paragraphs of lorem ipsum text. So if you want to fill your browser with stub text, there's tips and tricks that you can do to make this happen, right? So this is recorded, so you can, you can see it again. You can go back and rewind this. But in the same sense, here we go. I'm gonna, oops, I have multiple cursors on here. So I'll do that just one more time. I'll make paragraph times, let's say 4. I'm going to make 4 paragraphs. I'm going to do Control Alt down arrow to get myself 4 cursors over here. But this time around, I'm going to say lorem. Oops, sorry. I'm going to say lorem, and I'm going to make them long. I'm going to say lorem times 3 to give extra long lorem ipsum text. So there's 3 paragraphs of extra long lorem ipsum text. Now, within this guy, I've got my multiple paragraphs. I don't need to necessarily, remember, I can put spaces in between paragraphs over here, and that doesn't really change the way that these things are going to be formatted. I'm going to swap over now to this browser where I can view and zoom in. So this is the same file. And what I want to do inside of here is I'm going to put a link. So you'll remember the A tag is the link over here. And I can say something like, this is the link, right? And the link needs a destination. So if I say foo.html, and I'm going to reload my page. So as far as workflow is concerned, right, I can type in the link. I can refresh the page. Now I've got my this is a link. And I clicked on the this is a link, and it took me to the hi page over here. So anyway, why am I talking about this? Well, I want to talk a little bit about paths and addresses and how all this stuff works out. So it's straightforward enough. It's sort of intuitive, right? That if I type foo.html, this is going to try to make a link that's going to take me to foo.html. If there's a file named foo.html inside of there, it's going to link to foo.html inside of there. But there are lots of characters that we tend to put in front of this that, I don't know, need some elaboration. And this has to deal with Linux paths. So I'm going to really zoom this guy in over here. But this guy right here, that / character, this one. Do you know what the / character means in Linux? Yes. It's the root directory. What is the root directory? That's the right answer. Ruhan, tell me about the root. Not exactly, Peter.
It's the start of the entire folder structure.
It's
It's everything else inside of it.
It's the start. It's all the way up. So I appreciate that you're going out with this. This is what I love is like answering questions because there's no expectation that anybody knows this. This is all the way up at the top. So when the link sees this, right? So I have a link to href and then /. So what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to go back over here now. I'm navigating back and forth. I love my mouse. But I don't know. I feel like it's so clunky to try to like move the mouse in the trackpad, like forward and back. If you don't know Alt left and right, that's the same as using forward and back. So I like Alt left to go back. I don't have to go over and change my context. So anyway, I'm going to click on this link and notice that clicked on the link. It took me all the way to my C drive. It took me like to the top of my C directory over here. So you're going to see a lot in here. You're going to see a lot of slashes, and you're going to be asking yourself the question, when do I put a slash in front of it? When do I not put a slash? What do these slashes actually mean? The short answer is that if you put a slash in front of this thing, in front of your address, like foo.html, thinking that, oh, this is just going to take me to foo.html, this is most definitely not going to take you to foo.html. This is going to take you to like c/foo.html. Or if you're on an Apple product, it's going to take you back to the highest level of your operating system, like above applications. Does that make any sort of sense? So if you're not super familiar with your file structure of your computer, I'm going to encourage you to take a look around at how these files are organized and the hierarchy of them, and making that link and clicking on this. And it's good practice over here to see what this thing. So I went back. I clicked on foo.html and it's like, hey, it didn't find this thing. But if you look at what it actually tried to find, and I'm going to zoom this in, it tried to find c.foo.html. So it's important that we begin to get comfortable with the disambiguation, right? This link took me to c/foo.html here. However, when I just put the /foo.html, Like I didn't see that. Like I don't it to the unaware, you would be like, why is that? How is this somehow different? Now, one of the other Linux nomenclatures is the dot. So dot, you know what dot means in Linux? Yes. It's the current directory, right? So if I were to use like the CD business, and let's say I'm going to say CD over here into this folder, my alpha beta folder. And I'm going to clear. If I CD space dot, that just takes me to my current folder. So one thing that I'm really in the habit of is saying current folder dot slash like foo.html. And so I like to define addresses beginning with a dot saying that this is in the current folder. It's a little bit more explicit. I do this on the command line. It's an old habit. And it basically makes sure that I'm trying to run the file that's in the current folder as opposed to accidentally running a file by the same name somewhere else on the operating system that fits into the global path. This is like a little safety vest that I put around my computer usage. So when I run files, I just tend to put dot slash and then the name of it. Anyway, dot slash foo.html means current directory, right? Current directory slash foo.html. So the link to current directory foo.html, if we're to go back over here, and sorry, I reload this page, is this hi page, right? So taking my current directory over here, and if we look at what this actually looks like, so you can, sorry, you can see my whole path, C users, PC cosec download, supplemental index work.html. So here's this whole big fashioned, old fashioned path that we had. And so by saying dot foo.html, it takes me to the file foo.html in this current folder. It kept me in the same folder. So the reason that I pointed out like slash foo.html is there's a world of difference between these two file names, right? Slash foo.html is the root level folder of your operating system with like program files and applications and stuff. And this is the current directory, and they look very similar. Similarly, you can have dot dot foo.html, and dot dot means, yes, parent folder of this guy. And so we tend to have a lot of these folder navigation type things, addresses showing up inside of there, because maybe you have something like your user profile, right? So maybe in your users, maybe we've got our list of like heroes and requests. And so we're on the profile for each of our individual heroes, but we want to get back up the higher level to where it says like, you know, choose your hero. And then maybe we want to go one parent level up above that, where we're at like choose your adventure. So the folders are relevant, and navigating among these folders is a relevant thing to be aware of. And it sort of harkens back to the time where the browser began as this glorified file viewer, right? And we can still sort of see this when I tried to get to that topmost directory over here, right? So when I said go to slash this guy, and I go back over here and reloaded this, you know, going to my program files or whatever, like this is just basically a file browser. Chrome is like a file browser, and kind of what they're doing. So anyway, links, you can have the text be the same, or within your link, your text can be you know, the destination. There are use cases where you'd want to use one versus the other. And stepping away from that notion of this just being some sort of internet browser, right? Some internet tool, and rather the HTML being this Chrome plugin type thing. What we're doing here, again, to repeat, is we're telling the browser, hey, when the user clicks on this link, browser, go redirect yourself to the place that's inside of there. Go searching for that. When the user makes a paragraph tag, display some text that looks like this. When they make this unordered list, make a list that looks like that, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, How much time do I have? Not super much. So today's just sort of a brain dump day for me, and then I'll give you a little bit of work time over here. So one of the other things, when we're in these assignments over here, so let's go back and I'm going to go right up to here and like navigation through linking, is kind of what I just described. Basic linking, um, one of the things I'm looking for here, a lot of people are asking me like, why am I asking you to make so many HTML files? I'm looking for you to make multiple HTML files because I want you to try to think of this as scales, chords, and arpeggios, right? Like this is about doing some drills before we go and learn the piece. We're not at Chopin yet. We have to learn how to play the scale. We have to learn how to go up and down and get ourselves nimble with creating new files before we can go ahead and start making this like something nicer and prettier. And the practice of this will pay off. I get that these are going to be redundant, and by all means, it is entirely possible to answer all of these in a single file. So if that's the case, then just humor me and make something that humors me with a couple extra. Okay, it shouldn't really be that big of a deal. One of these things that some of these things, links that open a new tab. So links that open a new tab are going to be using the target attribute. So this is kind of cool. So if I have a link over here, so let's say I'm linking to foo.html, I can add the additional attribute inside of my link tag. I'm just going to make this a little bit cleaner for myself. If I say the target, why are you not doing that? If the target is equal to blank when you make a link, you get the really cool modern, oop, that's not what I wanted. You get this modern functionality of being able to click on a link and notice that it opened the other link in a new tab. So again, browser plugin, right? The instruction, the HTML instruction inside of here was that when the user clicks on this, you are going to direct the browser to this page in a new tab. That's what this is saying here. I know some people don't really like things that open a new tab. So like you have to think about user experience when you start doing this, but we're going to add the additional attribute inside of here. Now, there's another feature that we can do here. And I'm going to I'm going to go back to this guy. And let's say this. So I'm going to make 6 paragraphs. And what I'm going to do with each of these paragraphs is I'm going to add an additional element to them. And I use multiple cursors here. I'm going to say ID and this guy. So each of these paragraphs, another attribute that you can add to any HTML tag is an ID. The point of IDs is to give them unique identifiers for the browser, again, so that when you make some script, the browser can identify that paragraph. Like if you want to animate, if you want to make a paragraph animatable or have you like on hover click behavior or something like that, we need to be able to uniquely address these elements such that we can assign behavior to them. And the mechanism for unique addressing of HTML elements is ID. It's not strictly enforced, so absolutely you will be able, I would be allowed to call them all ID1, right? I could totally do that. That's bad practice. The browser's not going to get mad at me, but I could do that. As we're doing this, though, I'm going to introduce a term that I like to say a lot, and that's meaningful collision-resistant variables, right? Meaningful collision-resistant variables. ID underscore, okay, that's an ID. I know if I'm trying to verify, like that's an ID. Maybe it's not the most meaningful, but for right now, this is going to be enough. Collision resistant means that these have characters and numbers. So I'm not like, I'm not giving them the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like IDs or classes that are just strictly numerical. Or giving them like a single letter variable name or calling them X, like X and foo. X and foo are nice and fun, but they're not necessarily meaningful and or politically resistant. So we want to, I've got these guys as IDs. Anyway, the browser knows how to find them. Let's talk for a second over here. So what I'm going to do in this thing is I am going to, oops, stop. First of all, I'm going to add a space after each of these guys. And I'm going to say lorem times 8. So this is going to be super long text. So now if I go back to this page, come on, I now have really, really long. All right. So where am I going with this? So I have this paragraph. What I want to introduce to you, let's go back over here, is I want to introduce linking within the page. So if I were to say A for my anchor tag, href is equal to ID 4, or let's say ID 6, because there's a lot of them. Okay. So here I've put in a little link, and this guy is a link. So it's an anchor tag. It's that A tag, but it has a link to hashtag ID6. So what a hashtag ID6 means is that when I click on this, it's going to go to the element that has an ID of ID6. Does that make sense? It's going to go to the location on the page that has the ID. So the hashtag is representative of IDs. So go to the element on the page that has the ID of the ID6. So when I look at this in the browser and I click on this link, maybe it's a little bit hard to see, but it jumped all the way down to the bottom, right? I can't go down anymore. I go back up over here. There's that. I click on ID6. Oh yeah, took me right back down to the page. So what you find many times when you have these like navigation bars on the side of your page, you can click on something and it's like, go to this part, go to that part, go to question 2, proceed to question 3 on the same page. Those are links within the same page of the document, and those are going to be accomplished with links that say that hashtag and then the ID that they go to. Next. And so that's where I'm saying, like, in order to see this work, you kind of need like long filler text. Otherwise, it just goes like right to the top. Images. If you need images, oh, sorry, you can go to W3 schools and GTag. They have good reference on this. The IMG is going to be the name of the file, is going to be the source. The alt is the alt text that's displayed, and you can specify the width and the height. And they have some examples for this guy. And if you embed an IMG inside of a link, that basically makes an image link. Also, one of the things that we tend to do a lot these days is, a lot of our web pages are just, you view web pages on your phone, right? And so if you've ever been to the web page on your phone where you see like the phone number or the email address, and you click on this, and it opens another application, like click to call this number. There are additional specifications that you can put in to the links to tell the browser, again, browser plugin, right? We're making browser plugins. So for example, if I have this, you're making a link where the href is to send an email. Href is equal to mail to at Joan Smith. Well, here, there we go. I'm going to mail. I go back to this page, my document page, refresh because I made a change. And it's like, hey, how do you want me to open this mail to link? How do you want me to send an email? So a lot of this stuff can be used as a way to start it out. Like when they make links that start the Zoom meeting, right? Click on this to start the Zoom meeting. Click on this to make the phone call. Click on this to send the email. So there are a lot of other additional purposes, I guess, you could put into these links to have them go forward with that. Questions for me. I feel like this is like about all for 2 and 3. I think the stuff that's in here, you can rewind, go back, take a look at it. There's nothing that's really above and beyond this. Let me turn off this share and the recording. I'm going to end this. Thank you guys for being here.